Hello and welcome to Not Quite Did I Do That, Season 6. We are still in our interseason break, and I wanted to share something really special with you this week. Now, I know some of you may have heard about our Fontroversy live show that we did as part of the 2024 AIGA Design Conference. Well, the good news is you are about to hear it. Those of you who were actually on the stream for Fontroversy during the conference may have noticed that we had some technical issues during our first 15 minutes or so, but luckily I was able to find a rehearsal take that we did, and so I've cut the two together here to make one complete show. Caveat time, that complete show has some audio-related issues with it, so it's maybe not quite as sonically polished as I would normally want to put out there. But that being said, if you can look past that, I think it is a really, really funny episode and pretty informational. We covered Arial, the superstar of Brat Summer. It's a really, really good time, and it's so great to be back recording with Lena. I wanted to also give a big thanks to Li-Shan Wang and the whole team at AIGA Design Conference who are, kind of letting this be shared out with the world. So, I really hope you enjoy this episode. We are just a month away from the premiere of Season 6 of Did I Do That? So keep your eyes peeled to dididothat.design, and you will be the first to hear it. And tell all your friends, because we are coming back strong in February. Okay, now here's the episode.
Hello, AIGA Design Conference 2024!
Wow!
Coming to you live from Portland, Oregon. This is Fontroversy, a podcast that uncovers the weird and wild stories behind the fonts that just aren't quite our type. I'm Lena Hall, and I'm here with our producer, Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean. I forgot my own bit.
That's okay.
That's okay. It's so good to be back here.
We're here. It's been a long time
since
we've been together in any room.
We should give some context to folks because we are here at Portland State University in Portland, Oregon. I mean, sometimes the university name and the city name are different.
Yeah.
Although it is weird that it's the state of Portland. That's not...
We're not a state.
Don't worry about it. Don't think about it too hard. But yeah, we're here on campus, and it's so good to be back with you almost a year after, or more than a year.
More than a year and a half since we had our class that gave birth to Fontroversy as we know it.
It's a long labor.
A long labor.
Took several months in my summer.
I mean, lots have changed. We're now in a new office, as opposed to our little closet that we did this in before.
Was this office previously filled with rats? Don't worry about it.
But do you want little closet or rat? You can recreate Ratatouille.
Well,
yeah,
that's why I'm wearing this hat right now.
Is it Patton Oswalt that plays Remy?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe you'll get to meet Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt has several houses just from his Ratatouille.
He was also in the Minecraft story mode TV show. I just like to throw that out sometimes because it sucks.
I like how I brought up Minecraft in an earlier version of this, and now we're being
coming back around.
It's going to be in all of these, isn't it?
Yeah, and also since we last did it, I graduated, so I no longer go to school here. So I'm just guest appearing on campus today. I've already ran into 4 people I know.
Which
is very, very bizarre.
Well, it's wonderful. It's wonderful having you back.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful getting a chance to talk about fonts with the whole AIGA crew.
Yeah, we're real psyched that, I don't know, there's such demand for this little project that we did.
This very silly podcast.
Yeah, I don't think we ever thought that we would be still doing stuff with it today.
No, it's such a wonderful surprise.
Yeah.
But I feel like we should really get into what it is that we're here to talk about today. We were trying to suss out. We've done 4 episodes of incredible font histories, and we were trying to suss out, well, what is it that we have not covered? What are the big ones?
Because the fonts we've done so far are Helvetica, Comic Sans, Wingdings, and why am I forgetting?
Impact. Who could forget
That's like
Impact?
my favorite episode. I don't know how I forgot that one.
That was a banner one. But so like this is kind of important in terms of like what it is that we get to cover. And as my wheels were turning, trying to figure out, well, what do we talk about?
Rat gears in your brain.
Yeah. Well, since you graduated, I got a lab. I've been working in my lab.
Yeah.
It was late one night, and my eyes, this is going to sound dramatic, beheld an eerie sight.
Oh.
And like my monster, I have a monster now.
Don't worry about that. But no worries.
Like a completely normal and
casual
good
lore drop.
Don't ask any more questions about the monster. But yeah,
it is legal.
It's very legal and was always alive. That's
and
important.
Humane.
So humane. Oh my God. So yeah, my monster was on his slab, I think, and he began to rise. And suddenly, to my surprise, I noticed out of the corner of my eye the panel that all the information that goes into the monster has Arial on it. Arial. We
all know it. We all feel something.
And I gotta say, I think folks my age tend to feel the most things.
Yeah.
And that sparked something in me where it's like, I feel like that's a story that we have not yet covered. This story of Arial and this story of like how it got to be one of the most hated typefaces, but also one of the most available typefaces.
Yeah. It's
the most ubiquitous.
And a lot of the fonts that we've covered on this show have all been like unique in their own ways, for sure. Like definitely stand out in a crowd. So why would we do Arial?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest reason, and this was something I was thinking about maybe in regard to my particular problem, is that it tends to be when people criticize it, they criticize it on the ground that it's a Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And that's part of also the spooky season that we're experiencing.
We're just in Arial/Frankenstein break.
Yes. That's what they call this season, the Arial/Frankenstein season.
We all know it. We all feel a way about it.
100%.
Yeah.
And like, this is because this is such a weird spooky season, and like Arial is part of it. Like I am so like I really got into thinking like, well, where did this legend come from that Arial is a Frankenstein? And I started to suss that out. So I feel like we should go through it. Let's go through. Let's talk about
now, just from like my base of Arial, because we're from different generations of like, especially like in our understanding of media. So I don't have as much of a hatred towards Arial.
Well,
I'm pretty neutral towards it. Like I don't feel strongly dislike. I think it's just like kind of everywhere. Like it's the Google default font. But
it is.
Like for my generation, it's more like Comic Sans is the one that we really like trash on.
Well, I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
So let's back all the way.
Yeah, because I want to learn
the legend, the place that
lore,
the place we think Arial comes from.
Ye old Arial.
A typeface called monotype grotesque. Have you ever seen that?
Monotype grotesque. Yes, I have.
It's a grotesque. A grotesque. For those of you who don't know, it's got contrasty. It looks kind of old-fashioned.
I'm sure many folks probably are familiar with it.
If you're not, go look it up. You have more access to your computers than I do right now.
It's a great foundational typeface.
So that's the legend. Is it started with monotype grotesque, and they took it to the lab, put it on a slab, and turned it into a Helvetica.
Into a monster.
But I think it's worth like maybe backing up and thinking like, well, where do all these, because it's not the only one, where do all these Helvetica likes come from?
Yeah.
What's the shared origin of them?
I believe I do know this.
What is it?
It does come from the lovely Accidens Grotesque.
Accidens Grotesque, you say? Well, you are in fact right. Accidens Grotesque is the root of many of these. And those roots go way back. They go back to the 1890s. When
that's when I was a wee lass. Back in the day.
Well, I mean, yeah, you are a daywalker. I forgot to mention that. I raised Frankensteins. Lena is a daywalker. These are all like normal things that are just
you'll just have to
in
go
every
listen to our other episode.
So you just don't worry about it. But yeah, like Accidens is one of those shared origin points, and it's it's sort of percolating from other places. Do you know where the name Accidens comes from?
I don't.
Well, it's funny. I think this is such an early point in the history of sans serifs. Accidens basically just means jobbing. It's German for like jobbing. So it's like, it's for junky stuff. It's for like rough and ready, like things like invoices and letterheads.
Things
and, like,
you're never gonna read.
No, like things that are just like, we need to get this done and done at a small size, and we are running this job quick. So it's going to be messy as heck. So Accidents is just one of those in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And it's not for as much of a like impact as it has historically. It's not making much of an impact in its time.
No, it's not.
No, it's like it's in a lot of competition, especially as you get into the 20th century. You got Futura, you got Gil Sans a little later, and you know, Accidents is just jobbing away behind the scenes as those are kind of starting.
I want to start using the term jobbing.
Please start. Everyone out there listening to this, hashtag jobbing.
Hashtag jobbing.
You can only don't use it on X. You are not allowed. You can only use it on
Blue
Live
Sky.
Journal. Yeah.
Live Journal.
Live Journal. No Blue Sky.
You can tag me on Tumblr, but you have to go on the Wayback Machine because I exclusively use Tumblr in the year 2014.
I think new interactions on the Wayback Machine for you on Tumblr are not going to be overly successful.
Maybe for you. I am a daywalker, as we've learned. So
but anyway, like what is interesting about Accidents here is like, even though it's not catching fire, as the title of that other book suggests, it's inspiring other things like Ideal Grotesque, Venus, and those in turn go on to inspire Monotype Grotesque.
Yep.
Except only Monotype Grotesque series 215 and 216 in 1926 by Frank Hinman Pierpoint.
Oh, well, that's not what I thought it would be.
No, because all the Monotype Grotesques are not really designed as a family. They're just sort of little bits and pieces that come at all different times to solve problems. And it's the era of block type still. It's the era of like, you buy a specific size and a specific weight, and you just have that in your font case. And if you want something else, you have to buy another font case.
I like to imagine, like, on my computer, I think I have like something 1,000 fonts. But if I had to actually have physical versions of those, like, how much space would I need?
Well, that also summons the wonderful visual of what if you had like Curls MT in that font.
That would be
not to throw another Monotype typeface under the bus. So yeah, it kind of like it evolves into a family just through packaging, but it isn't designed as one. It's all kinds of different parts and pieces. In the 50s, Accidents start surging in popularity with Swiss design and, you know, the emergence of culture around that. And then that gets turned into Helvetica. As we learned on our Helvetica episode back in the archives, that's also where people sometimes think, well, this is when like the Frankensteining of Monotype Grotesque happens. This is when Arial evolves, right?
No.
Not at all. Not at all.
They're all lying to themselves if they think that.
Well, and I think this is a myth that I was really thinking of in the research, is that like, I think the myth that Arial is a Frankensteining is a myth because it is an adaptation, just like any other typeface. And like, I think just the very fact that it is coming out at the same time as Arial in people's minds in the 50s, when, you know, like Helvetica is being evolved from Accidents Grotesque, like Universe is also kind of being evolved from those same origins, and lots of other typefaces as well. And aren't they as much Frankensteins as Arial?
And I think that's where like we as designers and creatives kind of need to look at like any creative property and say like everything's kind of inspired by something else, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like these might be inspired by Monotype Grotesque, which is inspired by Accidents Grotesque, which I'm sure is inspired by something else. And like there ain't nothing wrong with that. It's cool to be able to look at something and say like these people are who inspired me and made my design part of something new. I think it's all part of just this palimpsest of type history. So you might be wondering, well, where does Arial actually enter into this picture? The answer is not yet, because we have to spend some time with Sonoran Sans Serif. Put on your cowboy hats, everybody. We're going to the desert. We're going to some indeterminate desert. I was never able to suss out which one. You would think the Sonoran Desert, but there are some other options apparently from some of the research that I've done. So Sonoran Sans Serif is sort of where Arial enters the picture, and it's a lot later than people will think. When would that have been? 1982. Oh, Okay.
I know, right?
But then when was Arial made?
1982.
Yeah, so this is real tight.
Yeah, I know. Sonoran sans serif is what becomes Arial, but it starts under that name. And it starts for a reason that I think will be very familiar. How we use type today, we print it off, right?
Yeah.
But in the 80s, that was a problem. That was not easy to do.
What were those printers that did the like punches in the side of the paper?
The dot matrix printers? Yeah. Shout out in the chat if you love dot matrix printers, everybody.
I just know the sound.
They make the most horrible sound just imaginable. Yeah. If you have never experienced one, just imagine like 1,000 little needles kind of poking in your eye and making basically the tattoo needle noise. That's what they do. So like the early 80s was when laser printers were born.
Yeah.
Kind of late 70s, but early 80s is when they start to become like, oh, we can actually kind of solve some of our laser printer issues and make ones that are high enough resolution, but also like low enough resolution that it's sort of a sweet spot for people can buy this for under $10,000.
A little more accessible if you have less than $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. So IBM has built one of those like super expensive ones, and they're like, Xerox is going to beat us to making a cheap one. We got to make a cheaper one.
Yeah.
So they're cutting some costs, and that is sort of where monotype enters the picture. And this is a time when they're, I think, historically considered to be in a little bit of financial trouble. Maybe. Who's to say?
We're not going to claim anything specific.
I am not a 1980s accountant, so I refuse to take any
thank God
ownership over that. Oh, you are? Really?
Yeah, sorry, guys. Just thought I'd drop that live. My deepest secret is out. You have a monster. I am an immortal being.
Oh yes, I forgot. You are Highlander.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I have a monster. You are a daywalker who has lived for 1,000 years and will live for 1,000 more. But
and in those years, I was an accountant.
That's not what I would be doing with my time, but I appreciate that nonetheless.
I choose to have fun.
You. Hey, apologies to all the accountants out there in the audience. I know there's so many at AIGA National Conference.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like this is where Arial enters the picture.
Because they wanted to make something quick that was affordable that could beat out the other folk.
Yes. Well, I actually, funnily enough, I have a quote from Matthew Carter. Who, this is the early stages of his career. Type legend, incredible type designer. He was part of the team that made it, led by Patricia Saunders and Robin Nicholas.
Of course, Saunders and Nicholas.
Yeah. He says Monotype had the rights to Times New Roman, of course, but not to Helvetica. And the contract with IBM was worth a colossal amount of money. And Monotype, in one of their periodic financial difficulties, proposed to make what amounted to a Helvetica clone based ostensibly on their Grots 215 and 216. So, you know, like Matthew Carter is on this team and he clearly has an opinion about whether Arial is a clone. He seems to really think it is. And to a certain degree, that makes sense with this story. Like we're dropping it in because of cost, because licensing is challenging to do. So the team of the incredible like British comedy team of Saunders and Nicholas.
Yeah, of course, our favorites.
We love them.
They're touring now.
Their specials on the BBC were so special. Like just like I watch them every Christmas. It's really it's so charming. It feels like cozy, I think is what it feels like. Like they actually work on this typeface, like adapting Monotype Grotesque's 215 and 216 specifically, not the whole family, into making Arial, a bitmap typeface for this laser printer.
And it's crazy to think that something that was specifically made for print is now like so ubiquitous in the digital space.
It really is. And I think that is also where I sort of discovered a surprise in trying to look this up.
A surprise.
I know, right? There's been no surprises at all this entire stream. So why would there be a surprise?
Like the Radiohead song. No surprises.
No reservations, no surprises, no dogs on the beach. But one of the big surprises is that Arial actually shipped for this printer, I believe in 1984, and
it's documented. I've seen manuals that have that name, Sonoran sans serif, in it. But there's also a Sonoran serif that's listed
So where's
alongside.
that?
I don't know.
Where is it?
Friends, there is a long lost twin out there of
We got lost media over here.
Arial, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it derives from. I've not been able to find anything about it. But if you know something about it, I don't know. Tell us, I guess. So yeah, that is kind of wild. But yeah, so like Sonoran serif is out there and is a secret long lost twin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you know.
I know. And like what a soap opera, twist. To have to this
Yeah,
whole
it's like
thing.
they're separated at birth. Oh my God.
We're gonna reunite them, and everybody's gonna love it. It's gonna feel so much better.
And then the series will go on for 6 more seasons.
Yeah, and really treading water at that point.
Yeah.
There's gonna just get into marriages and weddings.
We're making a telenovela, folks.
Separate marriages and weddings, but then also babies. It's I don't know. So that is where Arial first ships. And it's like for this laser printer that IBM put out, and like it serves its purpose. It looks good enough and it fits the metrics of Helvetica, which is also another kind of important thing that was part of what Matthew Carter was doing, just making sure that, the drawings were right for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Arial's out there in the world as Sonoran sans serif, and it like keeps getting used, keeps getting licensed until screens get good enough.
Yeah.
I know. It's like, it's kind of surprising, but all throughout this history of using this laser printer, screens are basically not good enough to really display type in a meaningful way. And so once you get into the 90s, Windows 3.1 ships, the first actual functional version of Windows. And
I actually used that one.
I also used that one for a little bit.
No, I use it now.
Oh, you use it now? Yeah. You should
Photoshop
upgrade
runs.
your computer, maybe?
That'd be crazy, though. What if I did?
I think you could become a very successful vintage computing YouTuber and own a house. And that's something I may not ever be able to do.
Yeah, me neither.
Not on my teaching salary. But yeah, so like, screens are coming along that are finally high resolution enough to display good type, and we need good type for them.
Yeah.
And Apple's already licensed Helvetica and a bunch of other high quality typefaces, mostly through ITC and Linotype, two of the other kind of big names at the time. And Microsoft is maybe not
a little behind
looking
on
to
the
spend
game.
a lot of money. I don't know. They're, budget conscious, I think is a good way to frame it. And so, basically the same as IBM was going into making that laser printer. So they go back to Monotype and say, hey, what do you got? What do you got that's Helvetica like?
Then, of course, we get Arial.
We do get Arial.
And it's finally called Arial.
It's finally called Arial. That does happen somewhere in between the laser printer and now, but it ships on Windows 3.1 as part of the core font suite.
And now that core font suite would have included things like...
Well, that's a great question. It would have included things like Bokeh Antiqua, Monotype Corsiva, Monotype Century Gothic.
Oh, yeah.
All of which do look maybe more similar
very
to
serif-y.
Their ITC or Linotype counterparts than, Arial does to Helvetica. That sort of results in a lawsuit, which we best not spend time on because it does seem like, it was a little bit of a complicated one. But like that is sort of part of the spreading of, I think, the myth that Arial is just a total ripoff. I will say, Robin Nicholas, part of the Nicholas and Saunders comedy team and creator of Arial, did have some things to say about Arial and how it gets used. But he's always been a defender of it. So I have a quote here from iMagazine. No one likes to see their typefaces badly used. I could do with seeing a little less of Arial. I don't really see Arial as my typeface. It was a product of its time. It was a way of filling a company need. But it's good to see typefaces being well used. Arial can look quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
Most typefaces can if they're used the right way.
That just brings up, like, I feel like what is one of the most important parts of my understanding of Arial is that, like, it's not a bad typeface. It's just usage that I think makes us feel strongly about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so unbelievably neutral that I feel like it's kind of hard to hate it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like it's Comic Sans or Papyrus, which, like, are just, they evoke such emotion. They make me feel so many ways.
I think they have a lot of character to them, which
Yeah.
Arial maybe doesn't so much. Arial is a vessel to pour your own feelings and thoughts into, and that is positive, but it's also negative. And, you know, I think this is kind of getting into where does it get used? Where does it get distributed? It gets into Microsoft Office and becomes the default in the non-Microsoft Word programs, basically from, you know, the 90s into 2007, when ironically a bunch of Matthew Carter typefaces replace it.
There you go.
But like it spreads and becomes this ubiquitous because of its extensibility.
Yeah.
It is a typeface that's available in a ton of languages, a ton
Yeah.
of character sets. Even before Unicode, the sort of glue that holds together a bunch of different character sets into one typeface existed, Arial was being sent back to Monotype and said, like, hey, can you build a special character set for, you know, this non-Latin language?
Mhm.
And so that is part of what spreads its ubiquity also.
And I think with Arial, like, one of the things that I do really enjoy about it is just how accessible it is for everyone. Because everyone can get Arial in some way if you have a computer.
Well, and that's so true. I think you were showing me earlier, there are like business signs in like Thailand.
I found many signs throughout a lot of the world. Like, I think I found some in Lebanon, I believe.
Wow.
Some in a Cyrillic alphabet. I couldn't identify exactly where, and they'd have the store sign in their language, and then underneath it would have Arial. And it would say, like, in English what it was that they're selling. And I thought that was so unbelievably cool that not only can you think of type pairings in our regular, like, Latin alphabet that work with Arial, typically using Arial as like a secondary or tertiary font, but that's extends to the world. And I just think that is so cool that, like, this thing that we kind of take for granted is really accessible, because Arial is also a dyslexic friendly font.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so legible. Like, when we were looking into Arial, trying to see its use in media, a lot of the time it is used as like the little tiny font that you see at the bottom of like a DVD or a video game.
Yeah,
and
playing second fiddle.
Yeah. But that's because it can be read at that scale, which is just like, I think that's neat. And I like to give props to that, because it's not something that every font can do.
No.
And I think it's cool that Arial does have the ability to do that.
Well, I think it is a great support player. You know, it kind of acts really well as crew when there is something else that needs to be done. And because of that extensibility, like, you know, that can be in pretty much anywhere in the world. I think we need to talk about sort of the hate train that came for Arial, because we're still in the Arial area. I don't know. We're still in the area of Arial being something that is being like seen out there and being used, but people have not come to loathe it the way that they would grow to.
Yeah.
And I think where that starts to change is in and around the late 90s, early 2000s. And I think that accessibility is part of it. So I have here a quote from Mark Simonson, esteemed like type designer and just absolutely brilliant writer, wrote in about 2001 in an article, "It has spread like a virus through the typographic landscape and illustrates the pervasiveness of Microsoft's influence on the world."
That is such an aggressive thing to write about a typeface.
It really is. But I think in trying to figure out, like, well, where did the wheels start to turn, and you know, like, I guess the worms start to turn, and
the worms
turn.
The worms do turn.
If
they
there's
be
one,
turning.
This is, add that to our list of spooky things for the.
There are worms.
Worms turning, technical problems, wheels turning. Also,
there's a ghost.
Wheels on the bus go round and round. These are the things that turn. Just providing this for any small children who might be watching the stream.
Yeah, of course.
For some reason.
They're big fans of the show.
They love the show, and they love tuning in at 2 p.m. Pacific to the AIGA conference.
They're at preschool and they're like, "Teacher, give me a second."
Yeah, they had to take some time off of preschool to attend, but that's good on them. I mean, they're getting this knowledge.
Yeah.
But so, like, I think this is the beginning of blogging culture. This is the beginning of a culture that I would come to really know and love, where design writing starts to be like populist.
Yeah.
It starts to be just like something anybody can do. And just like everything on the internet, it starts to get real spicy, real aggressive in its takes. Things are just like a little wild, which is kind of also funny to think about where Arial is in the design landscape at this moment too.
Yeah.
Arial is everywhere. It is in the pages of Design Week. It's their sort of main typeface.
Our notes that we have on this episode are in Arial.
They are, in fact.
That was not intentional.
No. In fact, it was almost entirely accidental.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's in the pages of Design Week. It's also in the pages of Mac User Magazine, which ended up doing a profile on Nicholas in 2005. But yeah, I think it's this blogging culture that also ends up kind of taking down Comic Sans.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one I can speak for because I've always been a little bit of a Comic Sans skeptic.
Yeah.
And that's definitely just from my like Tumblr days,
Yeah.
because Comic Sans is very prevalent on there.
Oh, that is the root of the weird design era that is starting to come to fruition right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like also as this kind of spicy blogging is happening, there's some real fears I think that people are feeling about like, custom type and, specifically deliberately chosen type being cast aside for these defaults. In, I want to say 2010 is when Futura gets replaced with Verdana in the IKEA catalog. A thing that I remember being such big news, and now I believe IKEA is in the process of like getting rid of.
Are they really?
Yeah, they
know that.
got their own custom typeface, and no one seems to notice.
I was gonna say if there is anything different, I couldn't even tell.
Yeah. So like it's coming at this weird time where, I think the design world is starting to have its own voice really, and specifically a voice that can reach outside of those like print publications that it's always been confined to. But it's also a time when like user ubiquity becomes a thing. Like users actually have access to these things. They can know the names of Arial.
Yeah. And that's just like the readily available resources you can always have. Like, what font is this? And then Google takes you to fonts in use, and suddenly you're just like exposed to so much cool stuff. Yeah,
and it's also like something that people are actively choosing because they like it too. I was able to find a 2001 study where, just in terms of general font preference, the study's participants preferred Arial over any other typeface, including the rest of the like Microsoft web fonts.
That actually really shocks me.
It really is.
But I guess the fonts that we know of were pretty like serify, a little more like stiff, I guess. So having a sans serif in there probably gives it a little more like playfulness.
Yeah, I would totally agree. But I think now we're at the perfect moment where the backlash against Arial hits its own backlash.
Yeah.
The post modern condition. And Arial starts to reemerge, right?
Yeah.
The meme culture, deep frying.
Oh my God, yeah. The deep fried memes, like surreal memes, definitely love Arial for sure. And I think that's just because people were probably using like readily accessible software that already had Arial on it.
Yeah. And it sort of becomes a joke to use it when it's like considered to be a little less than ideal in certain uses.
But now we're kind of, I don't know, like we're in the post era of Arial at this point.
Yeah, from this starts to emerge like, house music posters. I think it tends to be very popular in, sort of the dance EDM scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
And oftentimes those posters are also young up and coming designers that are specifically rejecting the things that maybe the designers the generation before were doing spicy blogs and advocating for grids or, like don't stretch type. Oh, we're going to stretch all the time.
They're actively like denying traditional Swiss type rules and stuff like that.
And like one of the first big uses I see of this is pretty recent. It's the Pirate rebrand, a studio rental company trying to speak to those kinds of audiences in the music scene. And then
we come to what I've been waiting and what has been what caused us to do this episode. It is the Charlie XCX Brat album, which has been, I am the like ideal crowd for the Charlie XCX thing. I have to admit I've only listened to like 2 of her songs, but I think the Brat album has been like such a crazy wave of like new design and just like new take on what an appropriate album and an appropriate like musician brand can be.
Yeah.
Because a lot of album covers are really like specifically curated. You know, these people that are really huge have lots of designers. And this really feels like very on brand for the artist. But also it feels very like, you know, there were a lot of designers that had a lot of ideas, and this was just kind of like what if we did this? What if we just threw this out?
Yeah.
By the way, as like as a nothing. And now we're seeing it even on Kamala Harris's campaign on her Instagram.
Leaning
She's
into this
using the
aesthetic.
Brat aesthetic.
Which is like a meme aesthetic coming through, like filtered through young designers.
We had Brat Summer. Like it is really just done a huge wave in terms of letting Arial be the forefront and also like embracing bad design, but it's like it works, you know? I can't imagine it being something else. And like we look at the color and we're like, that's the Brat color.
Yeah,
we got it behind us in cobwebs.
Thank you, Walmart, for your incredible cobweb selection. But I want to also like take a minute to return to a question that we had earlier on, which is like, is Arial Frankenstein? Because it does seem like maybe in looking at it, the evidence is maybe a little different than I had even thought.
It really, it knew what it was.
Yeah.
From a really early point, and I think we compare it a lot to other things.
So, funnily enough, speaking to that, in designing a typeface called Classic Grotesque, Rod McDonald, who we've heard from before, he was trying to revive like monotype grotesque, and his initial attempt, by his own merit, looked more like Arial than anything else. So, in a way, it is the proper coalescent of this. We get things now too, like, you know, Aptos, the new Microsoft typeface, which looks a lot more like Arial, including the humanist R.
It sure does.
Than it does Helvetica.
Yeah, our lovely R pumpkin that we have here hiding.
Yeah, and while there were typefaces that are a little bit more blatant, typefaces like Arial are able to stand on their own. They have their own personality.
I think you just need to give them the like space to do it.
Yeah.
And we just don't think of it enough.
I totally. And I think Rod McDonald has a great quote to kind of close us out. I've come to see the Arial story as a case of too many people with too little knowledge running a story they imagine has greater meaning than it actually has. For designers, it also brings up the issue of judging a design while ignoring all the business and technological aspects that go into producing a product. The development of Arial is as much a business and technology story as it is a design story. And so I think that's pretty much our story.
Yeah. Hey, what's up?
So
supposed to show up for the Arial?
Oh yeah, I forgot. So when we started, we were maybe thinking that
about the Frankenstein.
Yeah, and it turns out we actually don't need you because we're not really.
I came out all this way. I had to stop watching MASH to come here.
Yeah, I know. I realize that. I really appreciate it. But
thanks, Frankenstein.
Thank you, Frank.
As we've learned today, maybe it's not so much of a Frankenstein deal.
So I mean, I think that's about all we have. We should close things out. I think we're just about out of time.
So, of course, we just like to say thank you again. And thanks to all of you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of the show, spread the word by visiting Fontroversy.com or dididothat.design, where you can find all of our past episodes along with a ton more of Sean's Very Silly Design podcast. The show was designed by us, the students of Portland State University Graphic Design Program, as part of Sean Schumacher's Design 399 Public Design Communication in spring of 2023. To learn more about all the stuff we have at PSUGD, check out psu.gd.
I want to thank all our incredible contributors and amazing students who made this possible, including Lena. Thank you so much. Lena is currently on the job market, so if you're looking for somebody who designs as well as they host live podcasts, you can do no better. Thank you you really were the glue holding this together.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Special thanks to our show's co-editor, Orion Cortez,
He's
serving as our Frankenstein and kind of helping to Frankenstein the initial show together. Big shout out to all our crew here today: Tom Cheevers, Tori Mize, Tony Morales, and Donovan Wilson-Carr. Huge thanks to PSU's own Liz Sharman, Patricia Parsons, and incredible Kate Bingenberg, and all the other folks at PSU who helped make this possible. Also, our technical lead, thank you so much for kind of keeping us on track and making sure that viewers could hear.
And just one last big thank you to the incredible folks at AIGA for letting us do our silly little show as part of Design's biggest stage this year. That's Fontroversy. I'm Lena Hall.
And I'm Sean Schumacher.
And you'll see us come back from the dead.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.